One of the people who is pounding the table the hardest for more regulation in crypto is Kevin O'Leary. And one of the things that's really bothering me about Mr. Wonderful is that he's acting as if he lost money on FTX because he lost $15 million. Well, what Kevin O'Leary doesn't like to acknowledge is the fact that the money he lost was the money he was paid by Sam Bankman-Fried to pump FTX.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. After the recent development of Sam Bankman-Fried pleading not guilty to charges of fraud and money laundering, Peter Schiff questions not only the timing of the charges against SBF and him not being able to initially testify, but who else is complicit in these crimes. Schiff raised suspicion about the US government's involvement in the conveniently timed arrest of Bankman-Fried and said they were actually doing him a favor. Now we're seeing not only a protection of Sam Bankman-Fried by the media, but the fact that he was granted bail with the contingency that his parents' house be put up as collateral, even though the value of their home isn't anywhere near 10% of the $250 million price he was set free on. This shows that someone at the top, with a great amount of pull, is orchestrating the main mechanism of the case against SBF. Schiff also questions what the penalty for Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang will be if Bankman-Fried is acquitted. Many speculate the reason he wasn't allowed to testify directly after the FTX collapse was because he had incriminating evidence on many bad actors, and the collateral damage was being kept to a minimum. Schiff believes that despite the crash in FTX falling on the shoulders of the Fed, it's a precursor of what's to come in 2023. He also called out Kevin O'Leary for lying about the money he supposedly lost in the FTX collapse, saying that the $15 million contract was a fraud to begin with. Let's check out this interview with Peter Schiff as he talks about why Kevin O'Leary is as guilty as Sam Bankman-Fried and what we can expect next in 2023. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
I wish I would have taken a deeper look into Sam Bankman-Fried earlier, because I think I would have ferreted out the fraud pretty quickly, just like I did with Celsius. I just had one debate with Mashinsky, and I immediately knew he was running a Ponzi, and I called him out during the debate. And this operation was similar in that they were paying yield on crypto. How could you do that? Cryptos don't generate yield. The only way to generate yield is to take tremendous risk, which is exactly what he did. Except the people who were depositing their crypto didn't appreciate the risk that was being taken. Of course, they were taking a lot of risk themselves just owning crypto, because all these currencies are basically worthless. They're not even really currencies. They're collectible tokens. But pretty soon, nobody is going to want a Bitcoin collection or any of these collections, and the prices are going to implode. Well, I don't really know to the extent that what he did was criminal or just, gross incompetence and negligence. I don't really have enough information, but he was a young kid. I mean, he just turned 30. But, you would think that some of these hedge fund managers that invested with him would have done a little bit of due diligence. But this just shows you the way investors will act when they're drunk on cheap money. So I would blame the Federal Reserve for a lot of people acting as foolishly as they did, because maybe he was a kid, but there were a lot of grown-ups that were giving him money.
Schiff goes on to talk about how not only has the Fed put a negative posture on the crypto market with the downfall of FTX, but economically the US is in the same position with monetary policy as they were in 2008 when the financial collapse took place, only this time it's far worse.
One of the people who is pounding the table the hardest for more regulation in crypto is Kevin O'Leary. And one of the things that's really bothering me about Mr. Wonderful is that he's acting as if he lost money on FTX because he lost $15 million. Well, what Kevin O'Leary doesn't like to acknowledge is the fact that the money he lost was the money he was paid by Sam Bankman-Fried to pump FTX. Yes, he took the money that he was paid and used it to buy FTX tokens and to invest in FTX, the company. But he wasn't investing his own money. He was gambling with the house's money. Or more correctly, he was gambling with the money that Sam Bankman-Fried stole from his customers and gave to Kevin O'Leary to promote FTX. Now, according to Kevin O'Leary, he didn't even invest the entire $15 million that he got from Sam Bankman-Fried. He only invested about $10 million, so he was able to keep $5 million, but he ended up having to pay that in commissions and taxes on the $15 million of income that he earned to be a promoter of FTX. But for him to be going out there now and pretending that he actually lost money, he lost nothing other than his reputation. But other people did lose real money. They weren't paid by Sam Bankman-Fried, and these people are a lot less wealthy than Kevin O'Leary. They took their hard-earned money and put it on the FTX platform, and they lost it, in part because of Kevin O'Leary. It's possible that some of the people who lost actual money in FTX, the reason they chose to open up an account at FTX and deposit their money or their crypto there was because of Kevin O'Leary's endorsement. So rather than pretending to be one of the victims of this scam, he should acknowledge his own culpability in helping to perpetuate the scam. Whether he knew it was a scam or not, he was paid to promote a scam, and that was probably one of the reasons he didn't do all the due diligence that he should have. And I think he should have been more forthright when he was publicly talking about how great Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX were. He should have disclosed that he was paid $15 million to express that opinion.
Well, the U.S. economy is an absolute disaster. I mean, thanks to Fed policy over the last decade or so, we have a gigantic bubble. We never had a real recovery. We just had a financial bubble, and we dug ourselves into a much deeper hole than the one the Fed put us in 2008, following the financial crisis that they also created with the same type of monetary policy that is creating the crisis that we're heading for, which is going to be far worse than what we experienced in 2008. I mean, not only is inflation going to get much worse than it already is, but we're going to have a worse financial crisis than the one we had in 2008. So this is going to be the worst recession that the U.S. has ever experienced. It may even be worse than the Great Depression. It will certainly feel worse for most people because in the Depression, at least people got the relief of falling prices. This time, consumers are going to feel the sting of dramatically higher prices.
You believe that the third quarter growth and the factors involved are temporary. Could you break that down for us?
Sure. The only reason we had positive GDP in Q3 was because of a big improvement in our trade deficit. Now, we still had a huge trade deficit. It just wasn't as big as it had been in the prior couple of quarters. That was thanks to two factors. One, the strong dollar, which is now reversing. The dollar just had its worst month in 12 years, and it's falling again sharply today. So that's going to push the trade deficit up. In fact, the trade deficit in November that was released yesterday swelled by 10%. It was a huge jump. But the other factor that helped bring down the trade deficit was all the oil that Biden released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Oil companies were able to buy that oil and then export it. And so that artificially boosted our exports, which improved GDP. But pretty soon we're going to run out of the oil in the Strategic Reserve. There won't be a reserve left. And so we won't be able to rely on that crutch. So I think Q4, I mean, the economic news that came out yesterday and today was horrific. So I think we're going to have a big negative number for Q4 GDP. And so we're going to end the year on a low note. And I think we're going to have another negative quarter in Q1 of 2023.
After a recent request for a judge to keep confidential the identities of two individuals who helped him secure his $250 million bail, Sam Bankman-Fried was notified that the U.S. government is moving to seize more than $460 million worth of Robinhood shares as part of the fraud case against him and other FTX officials. The government is also taking control of assets and bank accounts that were part of a bankruptcy case involving one unit of the FTX empire in the Bahamas. One thing that still baffles investors is why Sam pled not guilty to the charges of wire and securities fraud, with the overwhelming amount of evidence stacked against him. With the proceedings now in motion, we'll have to wait and see. How do you think this case against Bankman-Fried ends? Does he get acquitted? Or will he face the full extent of the law? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.